Get ready to embrace debate. First Take starts now.
Coming up on the First Take podcast, how much trouble are the Thunder in after a blowout loss in San Antonio? Plus, will the Heat bounce back in Game 2 against the Pacers? And Bears wide receiver Brandon Marshall joins the debate desk. The First Take podcast starts right now. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to First Take. Carrie champion Skip Bayless in studio. Stephen A., he's in San Antonio. Good morning, Stephen A.
What's going on, y'all? Good morning. How you doing, Skip?
I'm doing okay today, believe it or not.
Interesting.
1 down, 3 to go.
You know what? You should be, Skip. You should be doing quite well, but I have something to tell you before we start off the show today.
I know about it.
Guess who?
Go ahead.
That's right. Guess who I was hanging out with yesterday before the game? My new friend, Tiago.
Wait a minute.
We had a good time, Skip.
You're such a Benedict Arnold.
So now you've hopped on the Spurs bandwagon because you love you some Tiago Splitter now?
No, listen. Well, I picked the Spurs to win the series. Last year, I picked them in the NBA Finals, so let's not trip. But the point that I'm trying to make is that Tiago Splitter's a very nice guy, Skip.
He is. I knew this all along. I tried to tell you.
He watches the show.
Yeah.
He watches the show. I must acknowledge, very, very nice guy. It was a pleasure to talk to my new friend, Tiago Splitter.
So
I just wanted to let you know that.
So to paraphrase Jay Farrow, does that mean that Tiago will now be vacationing on your forehead in the off season?
Oh no.
Well, that's a low blow. But
No, it's not.
If Barkley and Shaq and the crew could tease me about my forehead, I guess I could let you with that spray in your head.
I use no spray.
It's all
Zero.
natural. It's all natural.
Lies.
No
lies.
spray. Maybe a little gel occasionally, but that's a whole nother
Wait a
issue.
second. So Smith and Splitter are best friends now. That's what it's. That's apparently what we got.
I'm shocked.
Listen.
Yeah.
Hey, in the last week, I have gained 2 new friends, Tim Tebow and Tiago Splitter. They're my new friends.
What is this show coming to?
It's not a good thing, but let's talk about what's on the show today. He signed a 3-year, $30 million contract extension with the Bears. Wideout Brandon Marshall will join the desk in the first hour. You don't want to miss it. Plus, it's Game 2 in the Eastern Conference Finals, and somebody says it's a must-win for the Miami Heat. We will discuss that, obviously. But first, let's get to the topic at hand, people. Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. The Spurs snap a 5-game losing streak to the Thunder. The 122-105 win is the 110th career playoff win for the trio of Timmy, Tony, and Manu, tying Magic, Kareem, and Michael Cooper for most all-time by a trio. Meanwhile, the Thunder had the lead 4 times in the game, but they could not hold on.
We always want to try to penetrate. We always want to our ball movement. That's how we play. Pitch and kick and pitch and stuff like that. And obviously, it's a little bit better with him not being in the paint.
We play team defense. We don't just rely on Serge. He does a great job of blocking shots, but it's all because of our team defense. But we just he's a big part of what we do.
We're a no excuse team. Serge is out. He's not coming back. We have to play better. If we expect to beat one of the best teams in basketball, a very good offensive team, we have to play better.
Coach says Serge is out. He's not coming back. So here's the question. How much of a chance do you give the Thunder without their power forward? Stephen A., it's for you.
Not much of a chance. I picked OKC to lose this series in 6 games because of the absence of Serge Ibaka, and I'm holding to that. And I think last night, what transpired at the AT&T Center was just reminiscent of things to come. The Oklahoma City Thunder simply had no answer for the San Antonio Spurs inside. 66 points in the paint when Oklahoma City had given up an average of 40 this season, 40 in the first half. When you look at the level of dominance that they exhibited, the San Antonio Spurs, because of their size, Scott Brooks was almost helpless, for crying out loud. When you have to go small and you find yourself putting Kevin Durant in the post defending Tim Duncan, you know it's over. It's just too much of a problem. You started Nick Collison in place of Serge Ibaka with Kendrick Perkins. I thought that was a mistake simply because I thought somebody like Adams should have been in the game to sort of help maintain the tone that OKC usually sets at the beginning of games. I think he's closer to an Ibaka than a Nick Collison is. Nick Collison knows how to play the game of basketball. He's particularly exceptional defensively on the pick and roll, not to mention the fact that, you know, he's capable of doing some things, but he put up a donut last night. Adams only had 4 points. Kendrick Perkins is no kind of offensive threat. He's there strictly to be a physical presence and to be a big body in the post, and none of that was going to work. Greg Popovich came out and made sure that the Oklahoma City Thunder had to capitulate or acquiesce to what San Antonio was doing. Didn't change anything. Made sure Thiago Splitter, along with Tim Duncan, were in the starting lineup together. They went big. They forced Oklahoma City to try to adjust to what they were doing. And Kawhi Leonard just had some sensational baskets at the hoop, and Tony Parker got theirs at will as well. So in reality, what it comes down to is very, very simple. It's what we said before this series even began. Serge Ibaka, like Coach George Karl explained on this very show yesterday, erases a lot of things. Because he's that last line of defense, it enables you as Oklahoma City to get out and take chances on the perimeter. They couldn't do that, and as a result, they had no line of defense, and they were no match for the size that San Antonio threw in their direction. So their only hope is to go small, maybe a combo of Reggie Jackson in the lineup along with the Westbrook and the Durant. But in the end, if you can't defend San Antonio in the post, they just gave you the impression, Skip, that somehow, some way, they would figure things out when they needed to. Even though they surrendered their lead with about 5 minutes left in the third quarter, Oklahoma City ultimately ran out of gas, because that is what happens when you are a smaller team playing catch-up against big boys who know how to move and know how to move the basketball and share the basketball. That's what San Antonio did. They got balanced stuff from Manu Ginobili to Tony Parker's 14 points, 12 assists, all of this other stuff. Tim Duncan, 21 points in the first half. Just too much for Oklahoma City without Serge Ibaka. Game one is indicative, in my opinion, of what's going to happen the rest of the season.
So, are you revising your prediction now to Spurs sweep?
No.
No?
No, I think Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook I think Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook will definitely get you one, and they're good enough to get you two. And I definitely think that when I pick San Antonio in 6 games, so I'm holding to that.
You're sticking with your 6.
I'm not going to assume Kevin Durant does. I'm sticking with my 6.
Okay. As is often the case, my friend, we saw a very different basketball game last night. I saw a game that instructed me once again, this is going to be a very close 7-game series. This is going to go to the wire in Game 7 back in San Antonio. And here's why I believe that. Big picture, I'm going to remind you that to start the second half, the Thunder went on a 17-5 run and took the lead and held the lead until the 4-minute mark of the third quarter. Why was that? Because Scott Brooks went back to his starting lineup and they started to clamp down on defense. Cephalosha, and especially Perkins, and especially Collison inside, started causing my Spurs nothing but fits. And all of a sudden, they weren't getting to the rim anymore. And Scott Brooks blew this game last night by going back to his small lineup. I told you going in that my Spurs would have 0 answer for Westbrook and Durant, and they did not have an answer. They didn't have much of an answer for Reggie Jackson. The only answer is if you play all 3 of them together, then my Spurs have more of a chance, because all of a sudden the lane is going to open up. If you play Steven Adams with 4 guards and you throw Derek Fisher in, and please, Phil Jackson, would you just go ahead and hire him and get him out of this series, because he's killing my Spurs. Just hire him and he can just retire early and go coach the Knicks, and I'll be a lot better off. Did he not bomb some threes in the first half that kept him in the game? Okay, so here's what happened. It is a 1-point lead for the visitors with 4 minutes left. And guess who saved the day or the night for my Spurs? The guy who's about to turn 37 years of age. Manu! Manu! Thank you! You saved it. I don't care. Ibaka, no Ibaka. We can harp on that all day and all. It's like I felt like I've heard so much Ibaka talk. He should have been the NBA MVP and not Kevin Durant.
See.
Ibaka should have been the MVP because he is that valuable. No, he's not. Stop it. The Thunder are right there, and what happened? Brooks goes back to the small guard lineup, and my man Manu goes off. He scored 0 in the first half. He scored 18 in the second half. But more important, from that 4-minute mark of the third quarter through the fourth quarter, Manu Ginobili took this game over. He scored 15 points. And I can't see the monitor. Did we just show that shot that he made? The turning point shot. Could we see that again? I have no idea how he made this shot. Okay, here comes Ginobili again. If you can explain this, I said, no, don't shoot this. Don't shoot this. Ginobili shoots some kind of a finger roll, teardrop shot from the free throw line. I don't know what this thing was, but it went in. I don't know. I'm saying, don't. Yes. Thank you, Manu. And from that point on, he just took the game over. He took it over and eclipsed what Durant and Westbrook were doing. Kevin Durant forced too many shots up. In the fourth quarter, he's making too many turnovers. He had 6 for the game. But big picture, I think Oklahoma City walks away from this game thinking, okay, we got to do this, this, and this, and we can play with those guys because they cannot stop Westbrook and Durant. Ginobili, I'm not sure he's going to be capable of another 15 to close the game like he did last night, but that saved the series for the Spurs. Crucial for them. Remember, Stephen A., they had lost, what was it, 10 of the last 12 to the Thunder? So they had to win this game or they were just going to be in a psychological hole they couldn't dig out from under. They did because of Ginobili. Thank you, Manu. You belong in the Hall of Fame. Let's just put you in now. Thank you.
Well, let's be clear about something here. 2 of their 5 starters went scoreless. Nick Collison was 0 for 3. Thabo Sefolosha was 0 for 4. Kendrick Perkins hit 2 of his 3 shots. When
Doesn't matter.
3 of your starting 5 combining for 5 points, you have a problem. We know what Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook can do.
Yes.
We don't know what they can do?
Yes, we do. But I don't care if those guys score at all.
Yeah, that's what.
Why do you need the other guys to score?
What I'm saying to you is you're going to need someone other than those 2. That's all I'm trying to say. Those 2 can finish for you. What they can't do against the Spurs is carry you for 48 minutes to win 4 games in a best-of-7 series. That's what they can't do. That is the problem, not this Spurs teams. The Spurs teams of the past, and by the way, don't shake your head like you're remotely objective about the San Antonio Spurs. I know how emotional you get.
I'm more than you are. You're a Tiago fan. I'm not.
I was telling Tiago Splitter
just the other day,
along with some of your contemporaries. There's a lot of colleagues down here who know you very, very well, Skip.
I know that.
We were all talking about you last night.
Great.
And we talked about how
on that wall.
The San Antonio Spurs.
Yeah.
Well, if you would allow me to finish you would
go. The floor is yours as always.
Okay.
Yes.
The point that I'm trying to make to you is that they were talking about how emotional you get with your Spurs. That's all I'm trying to say.
Okay.
So my point to you is this San Antonio Spurs team is not the team that it was last year. It's not the team that it was when it won 4 titles. This is a different type of team right now. And when you've got Kawhi Leonard and your boy Patty Mills, who you've been raving about all year long, coming off the bench and just being a sniper, when you look at all of these guys, Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook and what they were able to do in the past was enough to beat the Spurs. Them alone are not going to beat these Spurs in a 4-game series. Somebody else is going to have to step up to help get the job done.
Okay. Now, last bit of extreme objectivity from me about my Spurs. I'm so emotional about my Spurs. Who's going to say this today? I can't stand watching Tony Parker do what he does on a nightly basis. He did it again last night, and Coach Popovich went off on him in the timeout early in the third quarter. He reverts to his slow-motion dribbling exhibition. 10,000 dribbles. He dribbled Oklahoma City right back into the game. The turning point in the game was when Pop took out Tony Parker and put in Patty Mills. Go check the play-by-play and tell me the game doesn't switch at that moment, because Ginobili goes to the point, and Ginobili will pass the basketball and make things happen. Tony Parker scored 2 points in the second half, third and fourth quarter combined, 2 points, and nearly dribbled them into oblivion to start the third quarter while Oklahoma City went on their 17-5 run. So I'm being very objective about my Spurs.
Well, there's no need to check the tape. You're absolutely right about that, because the minute Patty Mills came in the game, he was lighting it up, and that's the whole point. Popovich is talking about moving the ball. We understand that Tony has a tendency to do that sometimes. Most point guards do when they're sitting out there playing 36 minutes in a game and all of a sudden find themselves in a situation, Skip, where, everything is just going their way. You get a bit lackadaisical at times, and it does drive Greg Popovich crazy. Manu comes in, Patty Mills is there. You give it to Patty Mills, it's going up. Okay, he's putting the ball up. And this is exactly what you wanted. And when he hit a couple of shots, obviously they got back on track. That's what you need sometimes. That's what it takes.
All right, Game 2, Thunder at Spurs tomorrow, 9 Eastern. To the East, gentlemen, Bankers Life Fieldhouse in Indy. Pacers are a different team when they play the Heat. We've witnessed that. That's definitely in Game 1. But LeBron and D-Wade don't seem to be too concerned. So let's listen.
We're a team that gets better as a series goes on, and we learn from our mistakes, and I think we did today going over our film session on, things that we could do better, and that's a good thing about our team. We're able to bounce back.
When you're in the playoffs, we're a team that you don't want to get down 2-0. We haven't been down 2-0, so we always, find a way, try to find a way, over the years to not lose 2 games in a row. We've played our tails off that next game to do that. So, tomorrow, it's not about X and O's as much as about, obviously attention to detail and obviously having focus, but, just playing our tails off.
They're going to play well. They didn't play as well as they wanted to in Game 1. Both groups, both parties know that, so we do expect, a tougher Game 2.
D-Wade says they always find a way, so let's talk about tonight. Will they find a way? Is this a must-win for the Heat, Stephen A?
No, it's not. It's not a must-win. It's an important game. They need to win, otherwise the road is going to be significantly tough, and it's going to ensure, a long series. But at the same time, do I think that if they lose tonight, that the series is over, that it automatically goes to Indiana? No, I don't believe that at all. LeBron has never faced a 2-0 deficit in his era with the Miami Heat. There's no doubt about that. Dwayne Wade is averaging more than 27 over the last 2 playoff games. They will need to show up tonight. This is not a team that has come back and lost after losing by double digits before. I think they're 8-1 actually when they've lost a game by double digits. But I just look at the Miami Heat, and it's really not about the Heat to me. The bigger question is whether or not the Pacers are who we saw them as Sunday. That's the question. Because through the first 8 playoff games this postseason, they were just the 500 team. They were 4-4 before winning 5 of the last 6 playoff games. And even then, that one loss was by 30 on your home court in Indianapolis in a closeout game. That simply is not supposed to happen. So again, I like the Pacers on a personal level. When you look at them as players, defensively, they're an elite basketball team. But offensively, they're very inconsistent and sporadic. You can't trust them offensively. Is Roy Hibbert going to show up tonight and drop 19 again? I mean, I trust David West to do what he does, but is George Hill going to hit 3 3-pointers and drop 15 points? Is Lance Stevenson going to keep his cool? Is Paul George going to play like a star, like he needs to play when you're going up against LeBron James? Are they going to get any kind of production from the bench whatsoever? Is Louis Scola going to show up? The list goes on. And so for me, when I look at the Indiana Pacers-Miami Heat series, to me, it's not about the Heat. As far as I'm concerned, all they did was wake the Heat up and make sure to remind the Heat, you're in the Eastern Conference Finals and we're not going away. That's fine. You knocked on their door. I think they will answer. The question is, will the Indiana Pacers be who they were supposed to be all along, or will they revert back to some really, really bad tendencies that we saw, at least at the earlier part of this postseason?
So who you got tonight?
I'm going with Miami.
By? Close? Big?
Not big. I'd say about 8 points.
Okay.
Sort of like 97-89.
Okay, I got it. Back to Kerry's question. I do not think this is a must-win, but it is a had-better win for the Miami Heat. I will remind you that very quietly, this Indiana team has been 5-1 on the road in the postseason. As up and down as they've been, they've won a lot of key road games, albeit against inferior competition. But I'm not going to write them off on the road at Miami. Now, we had George Karl on the show yesterday, and we were about to the end of our topic and our time. And George Karl made some powerful points that swayed me, because I have great respect for George Karl, and I think you agree, Stephen A., he deserves another head coaching job. And
no question.
Please, God, give him, make the right one happen for him, because he deserves it. He's still got a lot of fight and energy left in him. Now, George made 3 points that gave me pause, because it's given him such pause. He's starting to lean toward the Pacers winning this series after Game 1. He said that, and we've all talked about this before, the Pacers are just too tall for the Miami Heat. They're too physical interior-wise for the Heat, that Chris Bosh is in a game he's not comfortable playing. And George, who coached Birdman, remember, for 4 years in Denver, made the case that Chris Anderson's not comfortable in this kind of a physical game. Well, that's big trouble for the Heat. And then George made the point that the Heat don't play on-ball perimeter defense the way they used to, where they could disrupt you, turn you over, and create fast break runouts the way they used to. And he's talking about Dwayne and Ray Allen, Battier, Norris Cole, that they're just not disrupting on the perimeter the way they used to. Well, now LeBron has to switch back to me and play Paul George. You got to make that move, or you got no shot tonight. And yet, I'm watching the interviews yesterday, Stephen A., and the Heat made the case, which is obvious, that in the Big Three era, they have never fallen to 0-2 in a series. They always come back and win that next game, as they did against the Spurs at home last year. Well, they were kind of blasé about it, like, we got this, it's who we are, it's what we do, we're the Heat, we turn it back on. Obviously, they mailed it in Game 1. They did not take the Pacers nearly seriously enough. Well, that kind of talk led me to believe that, wow, you're going to take them seriously enough this time? I'm not so sure about that. I predicted the Heat could win this in 5 games, so I'm going to stick with the Heat tonight, but I think it's going to be close, and they better win a lower scoring game. They can't give up 107 again. I'll go Heat 93-90.
Listen, if they don't win tonight, then Game 3 puts all the pressure on the Miami Heat and allows Indiana to play with house money. That's what makes it dangerous, which is why you want to put Indiana back on its heels and see how it responds against the reigning defending world champions, going to South Beach. That's the way I look at it. But Dwayne Wade, to me, we keep talking about Dwayne Wade, LeBron James. Chris Bosh is going to have to step up.
Yeah.
We have to, incredibly nice guy, incredibly got big time skills. To be his size, his length. But last time I checked, he's getting paid 9 figures too. And Chris Bosh has the requisite skills to make a difference. Chris Bosh needs to go about the business of trying to average 20 to 25 the rest of this series. I'm talking about putting the ball up, okay, and attacking these dudes. You're 6'10", you're 6'11", you have a perimeter shot. You can put the ball on the floor against the Roy Hibberts of the world. One of the things that was very disconcerting for me, Skip, is the other day, Roy Hibbert was 15 feet away from the basket on the right wing, and Chris Bosh was defending him. And he actually drew a foul by driving past Chris Bosh, who couldn't get his feet in front of Roy Hibbert in time.
Yep.
Do you have any idea how inexcusable that is? You understand? Listen, no disrespect to Roy Hibbert, because he has turned things around, it seems, and we root for him because he's an incredibly nice guy, and he's a big man and a big man presence. But if we're being real about it, Skip, my Lord, that's almost the equivalent of getting beat by a snail. Are you kidding me? How does this man drive by you or almost get by you to the point where you can't even get your feet in front of this man to draw an offensive foul or something along those lines? You can't allow that to happen if you're Chris Bosh. Chris Bosh, LeBron James, both came to Miami Dwayne Wade may have taken less, but in the end, they all did. You still signed for about $110 million. Okay, that's what Chris Bosh is getting paid. He's going to be a free agent come July, looking to move on. You got to step up and do more. Chris Bosh is too skilled for this. He's got to step up like Dwayne. We're going to hold Dwayne Wade and LeBron James accountable. He's getting paid the same dollars exactly as LeBron James and more than D. Wade. I need to see more of Chris Bosh in this series. He needs to show up offensively.
You got it.
I got it.
You got it? All right. Heat at Pacers, 8:30 Eastern on ESPN. The process to terminate Donald Sterling's ownership of the Clippers has begun. A hearing is set for June 3rd, which will allow owners to vote to terminate Sterling's ownership. Sterling is being charged with damaging the NBA and its owners with racist remarks about African Americans, and his actions undermine the NBA's efforts to promote diversity and inclusion. Meanwhile, his estranged wife, Shelley, released the following statement through her attorney. We have just received voluminous charges and are beginning the process of carefully reviewing them. Based on our initial assessment, we continue to believe there is no lawful basis for stripping Shelley Sterling of her 50% ownership interest in the Clippers. She is the innocent estranged spouse. Innocent estranged spouse, so she says. Stephen A., how do you see this all playing out?
Well, I see it playing out the way we all suspect it's going to play out. I think Donald Sterling will have all his ties with the NBA severed. I'm looking forward to this June 3 vote. It's something that I've been clamoring for the last couple of weeks now. It's something, as far as I'm concerned, that should have happened already. But in the end, Skip, it was, as we've talked about on many occasions, here's what the bottom line is. Those owners that are going to vote June 3rd, you need 3/4 of the vote in order to vote Donald Sterling out, along with, all of his partners, whomever they may be. 3/4 of the vote is what it takes to get him out. But it is not what is going to satisfy the players. The players, members of the Players Association, the people that I've spoken to, which are innumerable, they all say they want a unanimous vote. And me personally, that's exactly what I want. A unanimous vote on the part of all 29 owners voting Donald Sterling out. And if there is anyone dissenting to that opinion who believes that Donald Sterling should remain as owner of the Los Angeles Clippers and still have his connection with the NBA family, I don't want a private vote. I want it known publicly who those owners are. And so do the players. And I'm not just speaking for myself. I'm not just speaking for Magic Johnson. I'm not just speaking for Michael Wilbon and Chris Broussard and others, other reporters that cover the NBA or have been associated with the NBA. I'm talking about numerous players, including LeBron James, who want the same things. Yeah, you want him out. But at the same time, considering Donald Sterling's words, considering how he conducted himself in the aftermath of that audio tape coming out when he sat down with Anderson Cooper of CNN, considering how he attacked Irvin Magic Johnson, considering some of the things that he said, showing very little remorse or contrition or anything of the kind, and what they know his history to be, there is no question that the vote on June 3rd, that's fine, good and dandy, but 3/4 of the vote is not going to be enough. It needs to be unanimous. There isn't an owner associated with the NBA that could legitimately look the public or the players that carry its brand on its shoulders and justify voting for this man to remain as owner of the Los Angeles Clippers. And as an aside, can we all do Bill Duffy, the agent, a favor and stop showing that footage of him sitting next to Donald Sterling? Because if I'm Bill Duffy, I'm very, very disgusted and annoyed by constantly seeing my face sitting next to that man in the aftermath of what has transpired. That's all I have to say.
Fair enough. Done. I think.
Yes,
I'm not sure I have that much power.
We're not using it.
It needs to be done.
It's done.
Okay.
I don't want to see that tape again. But go ahead.
I agree with every point you just made. I want to reiterate that I am happy and relieved for the NBA that at least we finally have a date. June 3rd. Finally, at least we're told, there will be a vote. Now, from this point on, I have no idea what I am talking about. I'm sure some people say, well, you rarely have any idea what you're talking about. But on this matter, I do not, because this is way over my head legally. But it's going to boil down to, does the NBA Constitution supersede the United States Constitution? Because the NBA has dug in on this and says, yes, it does. We can do whatever we want with Mr. and Mrs. Sterling. We can push them right out the back door if we can prove that they damaged our brand. Okay? That's what you tell me. But right away, by the bylaws of the NBA, Donald Sterling now has 5 business days to respond to the charges that have been sent to him. Voluminous charges, right?
Voluminous.
Okay, 5 days, yet his lawyer has already fired back.
Yeah.
No, we need 3 months. Well, who's going to win that little battle? That's the first shot that's been fired back and forth. Who wins? I don't know. This is way over my head. But it's going to come down to, will Donald Sterling really get his little day in court on June 3rd with the NBA, just with the NBA, where he gets his little quick say in response to charges levied within the confines of NBA ownership, and then the vote will immediately be taken on June 3rd? Is that what we're heading for? I'm with you on everything you said. I want unanimous. I want it made public. Because I can't imagine that well, I guess I could imagine a couple of them, but whatever.
Right.
But we need it made public. We need to know the whys of the voting. Is it really going to happen on June the 3rd, or are they just rattling their sabers again? Just trying to make everybody feel good about we have a date and we're moving forward. Will we find out on June 3rd that it's way more complex and complicated, and it's going to be a much longer legal battle than we were led to believe? Maybe, Stephen A., because maybe you're better as a legal eagle than I am, but I don't know much about this.
Well, bottom line is this, Skip. Let's just lean on common sense from this perspective. The legalese that it will subsequently entail has absolutely nothing to do with the NBA's Board of Governors collectively allowing their position and their stance to be known. No matter what legalese it entails, it didn't stop Commissioner Adam Silver from coming before the public and banning Donald Sterling for life. No matter what legalese entails, it doesn't stop the NBA's Board of Governors, consisting of the other 29 owners in the NBA, for coming forward and saying, we stand hand in hand in unison with our Commissioner Adam Silver in voting Donald Sterling out of this league. That's the bottom line. Anything else that it entails, everybody will understand. Doc Rivers will understand it. The Clippers players will understand it. The city of Los Angeles will understand it. Every NBA city and every NBA team that represents those respective cities in the National Basketball Association will understand it. We understand that there's a U.S. Constitution. We understand that there are laws that need to be addressed, and that when a lawyer makes an argument, procrastination is their middle name. And so we understand how this stuff can drag out. Because if you're Donald Sterling and you don't want to go away, you know what you might do, Skip? You might sit there and say, okay, I'll sell the team, but it needs to be for this price. Or I'll sell the team, but it needs to be some future television revenue that I can get a part of if you just want me to walk away quietly. You're looking for a deal here. You're looking to find a way to finagle yourself into a situation where you end up receiving even more profits for your troubles. Everything is about bargaining, and everything comes down to dollars and cents. Don't get it twisted. But in the end, that has nothing to do with the position that Adam Silver has taken and the position that we all should expect the owners should take come June 3rd. You gave us a date. We have the date. We'll be looking for what's going to transpire on that date. And the expectation, not the hope, the expectation is that 29-0, the owners have voted for Donald Sterling to be gone. If there is 1, 2, 3, 5 owners who say no, we are against removing him as owner of the Los Angeles Clippers, we have a right to know who those owners are. Because if you do not know, then who's to say that the players are not going to react and conduct themselves in a fashion that affects the NBA collectively, meaning just the brand itself, as opposed to targeting specific owners who support Donald Sterling. That's the concern here, which is why it's incredibly important if the owners are smart and they want to put themselves in a position where they have nothing to worry about. They need to be able to say, the commissioner has taken his stance, we stand in unison with him, but we can't help what the courts, when the courts want to hear the case and how long it's going to take. We have no control over that. That is what they need to be able to say to Chris Paul, LeBron James, D. Wade, and the rest of the NBA
So you'd be
players.
happy with a 29-0 vote on, let's say, June 3rd, if it actually gets done that quickly.
Right.
Then you're good to go, because Sterling will sue. Mrs. Sterling will sue. Then I'm not sure if the NBA will quickly win in the real court, the United States court.
Right.
I'm not sure about that.
You're right.
Okay, but you're going to be good
But that's
to go
something we can't
anyway.
control.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as the process is
nobody
taken
can
care of.
control
Okay,
what the
I
court's
get
going to
it.
do.
All right, so
Nobody.
listen, just really quickly, Skip mentioned this, 5 business days to respond. That's next Tuesday, May 27th. June 3rd is the hearing. We obviously will keep you posted on that.
What an amazing day for us right now. We want to first thank the McCaskies, the owners of the Chicago Bears. What we're about to do today is we're about to sign a $40 million contract, an extension. Yes.
Oh my gosh! He's the highest wide receiver contract in Bears history, by the way, right?
Yes, but what's so cool about this is we're probably going to retire a Bear.
Okay. Well, that was quick. You're going to retire a
Just shut
Bear.
it down.
Yeah, we're done. That's it. That's all we needed to know. Brandon Marshall, ladies and gentlemen, you just heard him say he just signed a new deal, more than likely retiring as a Chicago Bear. Well-deserved. Congratulations. We welcome him to First Take, ladies and gentlemen. I want to start off by saying this. When you did that deal yesterday on The View and you were talking about your deal, you were very specific. You're taking $1 million of that deal and giving it to mental health awareness. And that's something that's near and dear to your heart. First off, I really want to applaud you because you're removing the stigma from talking about mental health and issues. You don't have a problem with that. Tell me a little more about this donation.
Yeah, you know what? To be honest with you, it's just a drop in the bucket. You know, but my wife and I, we prayed on it for a few months, and we said we have to put our money where our mouth is. You know, a lot of times you see athletes or entertainers, they put together these foundations and they ask everyone else to invest, but they don't invest. So we wanted to show, you know, everyone how important this is, but also create discussion. You know, it's needed. 10 cents is important. A 10 cents can essentially buy a pamphlet that can save someone's life. You know, so it doesn't matter if it's 10 cents or $1 million, but we are challenging the community to put their 10 cents or their $1 million or $100 to the cause so we can, you know, bring resources to those who may be suffering or suffering in silence.
All right. Stephen A., you want to ask him something?
Well, first of all, I'm proud of you and I'm happy for you, brother. It's well deserved, man. You really, really deserve it, and congratulations to you. Now let me get to some football, though, because with you getting paid this money, with this money comes expectations. Now, I mean, 2 consecutive seasons with 100 receptions, over 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns. You deserve a lot of credit for that, but the Chicago Bears have been out of the playoffs the last 3 years. So I'm going to ask you a question. In light of that, what are we to expect from Brandon Marshall and the Chicago Bears this season?
Well, first of all, why are you, what's up with this diva act? You're never in studio every time I'm here. I see him all these commercials he's doing now.
Alberto, the
Come
big
on,
jerky
man, what,
guy.
you in Hollywood right now?
He's Hollywood.
Very Hollywood.
Yeah,
That's
Hollywood.
apropos.
Yep.
Brandon, I am in San Antonio, Texas.
Yeah, sure, buddy.
I don't sit there and just do the show and that's
Bro,
it. I
you're a
have to work in
diva.
San Antonio.
You're a diva. You're a diva. You're the modern day diva.
right.
It's
All right.
okay.
Okay.
But no,
I know this much. I'm a broke diva compared to you.
You're making more money off the field than I am.
Please.
No,
Please.
listen. No, there is a lot of expectations on us. You know, you see what the commitment the Bears made with Jay Cutler and myself and other big time free agents. The time is now for us. I love what Phil Emery and the McCaskies are doing. So, hopefully we get it together sooner than later.
Well,
Hold it.
How about
Did you
sooner?
just say big time and Jay Cutler in the same sentence?
Oh, Steven.
That's
that what you
that's
just
his guy.
said?
yeah.
That's his guy, Jay
Best
Cutler.
believe it. Okay, so go out on some limb for it is time for you and Jay both to do something significant on the football field. You're both very good at what you do. There's no argument about that. But it has not produced the kind of results here or in Chicago or in Denver that it should.
Yeah.
And I think you're both at the peak of your careers right now. Maybe after next year it would start to go a little on the downside for both of you. Well, you don't know that. So go tell us what you're going to do next year.
When you look at our situation in Denver, I was immature and freaking reckless.
You were.
Jay he was young and immature. Probably didn't even see the game the way he sees it now.
Yeah.
We blow that whole thing up. Coach McDaniels, I like him, but he blew that whole thing up. Then we come into Chicago, and now we have an offensive line that struggled a little bit.
Yep.
We patched that up. And our defense struggle. So now you see that our offensive line is in place. We have studs like Alshon Jeffrey, Martellus Bennett, Matt Forte, Marquise Wilson, a young stud that's coming up, still of the draft last year. And then you see what Phil Emery and the coaching staff did on the defensive side. The time is now. Yes, so it needs to happen now rather than later. But we have the guys upstairs and in the locker room that can get it done.
Okay, should I expect you to win the division next year?
You know what? If we don't win the division, it'll be a disappointment and it'll be a failure. So absolutely, that's our goal. But our goal is to win the Super Bowl. But we know how hard it is. It's going to be challenging. One of the hardest things, in the words of Dwayne Wade, one of the hardest things you can do, but one of the most rewarding things that you will ever go through. So we're embracing the challenge. And the cool thing about our team is we're all selfless. We got guys pulling for each other. It's cool to see Alshon Jeffrey come to the side and draw up a play for me, and Martellus to come to the sideline and say, this is how we need to get Matt Forte the ball, or me going to coach and say, Coach, what do you think about this formation or this scheme?
Yep.
So we have a special group of guys, and I think we show that. But, like I said, we're enjoying the journey. What's up, Diva? I didn't know you were still here.
See, Brandon,
I didn't know you were still here.
This is what drives me
I thought you were shooting another commercial.
Look, man, stop it, okay? This is what drives me crazy about you. This is what drives me crazy about you, Brandon. Check this out. You just finished explaining.
Yeah.
Well, it's cool to see Alshon Jeffrey go to the sideline and draw up this play. It's cool to see Matt Forte do this. It's cool to see me doing this for hours. What about Jay Cutler? He's the quarterback.
What you failed to realize, we had the same, why do we keep going down the same road? We had the same discussion at the Super Bowl.
Because I'm not.
We did. Jay Cutler was having his best year until he got hurt.
Why?
He was having his best year ever in a first year system.
Excuse me. What you said the same thing. That's why we keep going down this road, because you said the same thing the year before that and the year before that.
If I had those headphones, I'll put them on your virtual
you don't want to hear it right now.
now.
You don't want to hear it from you, Stephen A.
Okay, let me bring it back to the real world, from the football world.
Man. Okay.
You know how I feel about everything you've gone through.
Yes.
And I've said several times on this show, I believe in your what I think is a true spiritual rebirth.
Yeah.
You went from reckless, as you said, in Denver. You went through this is in the past, your domestic abuse issues, obviously. And it was amazing to me that you wind up doing this extension and this contribution on The View. On The View.
Yeah. Good audience.
Known as a women's show, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me what that meant to you in your journey.
Well, like my wife said yesterday, it's one of those moments that where we can really say we have arrived. It's not about being on a view, but it's really that, you know, we've gone from patient to provider. You know, now instead of being the one that's seeking help, we're the one that's giving help. Now, there's still moments, of course, because we're still young in marriage and, you know, we still have a lot to learn that, you know, we need to hear from other people or need other couples and people to pour into our lives. But, you know, we're really thankful for the place that we're in. We believe that we can be the preeminent foundation in the mental health community. But it is cool to see, you know, just 5 years ago, the issues and the struggles that we were going through to now, you know, being on The View and, you know, pledging $1 million to something that is affecting, you know, all of us. It hits both ends of the spectrum. You know, I've been here several times, so, you know, we all know the statistics, 1 in every 4 of us. So that's over 100 million Americans. Yeah. You know, so it's important for us to break.
Suffer from some sort of mental disorder?
Yeah, but what people don't understand is borderline personality disorder. Okay. Let's talk about that. It's a criteria of 9. It takes 5 to be diagnosed. But you have the traits too. You have the traits. But if 2 are represented or is present in your life, and if they're out of control, your life can be a living hell too. You know, so it's about, you know, managing and coping. Just 2. Yeah. You don't even have to be diagnosed with it. If I can't control it. You can't control it. You know, so it doesn't matter if it's depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, you know, borderline bipolar. It doesn't matter. Like, we're all one point and another, we're going to go through something. You know, it's how you deal with it. You don't have to be diagnosed. You don't have to have a disorder. You know, it's just life is hard sometimes. You know, whether it's in marriage, whether it's in our career, in the competition, you know, and trying to produce. You know, so it's something that we all should talk about. It's a taboo topic, but it needs to be in the forefront of our country right now.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I feel obligated. I feel obligated to ask Brandon because obviously, as Skip pointed out, you've done a sensational job of just rehabilitating yourself and just getting your life steered in the right direction. And I can't say enough about how proud I am of you.
Thank
but
you.
At the same time, I feel compelled to ask you, how are you feeling about some of your contemporaries? Now, obviously, they may not have quote-unquote mental health issues. I don't know. But I guess what I'm asking is, when you see some of these guys getting in trouble, incapable of staying off the weed along with other issues, I find it really disturbing that somebody like you can transcend and transport yourself to another level that's clearly incredibly beneficial to you and your family and to the league and to our community. Yet you have some people out there that still don't get the message. What do you say to them, Brandon?
Yeah, well, it's hard. And there's 2 things that jump out. One, you have to be willing to go through treatment in a certain way. And 2, you know, like, again, it's hard. But you know, sometimes I have to remind myself, because it's really frustrating when I see guys, you know, making the same mistakes over and over. But I have to remind myself, and even sometimes, you know, pick up my laundry list of things or open up my closet and say, well, I was in that position, so I understand. You know, but what I try to do is just reach out to those young men and just try to be, you know, one part of the support system, and really just try to use my story to inspire them or to help them or walk them through the process. So it's a difficult thing to do. You know, I'm lucky that I'm still here. You know, so, well, you know, my job moving forward is really to continue to be really transparent, to be open and honest, to really help these guys, not just the players, but also, you know, executives, coaches, you know, the whole NFL, NBA, you know, all of sports. So, you know, we're excited where we're at right now, but it is difficult, you know, seeing some of this stuff. You know, it's a hard community to work in because everyone doesn't make it. And that's the tough thing. You know, we can do all these amazing things, pledge all these, you know, all these dollars, but at the end of the day, there's some people that aren't going to make it.
That's just
what
it is. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Brandon Marshall, may you and your wife continue your work from patient to provider. We're really proud of you, and we wish you the best, obviously. Enjoy your day on campus.
Jerry, what is your timetable to get the playoffs expanded to 14 teams?
Well, the sooner the better for the Dallas Cowboys. And, of course, just generic statistically, the more of our teams that have a chance to get in the tournament, I think it's better for not only our game but fan interest, which is the most important thing. When you think about our parity and when you think about how close these teams are and how we're designed as a league, then it does make sense for more teams to get in because they're pretty close. And that's you can prove that point by looking at the success of some teams that have come from the wild card spot in the playoffs. So the dominant team in the season hasn't necessarily been the obvious resulting Super Bowl champion. So I'm all for this.
Is Jerry Jones speaking for all owners? Not only better for the game, but better for fan interest, which is most important. So says Jerry Jones. Skip Bayless, what's your reaction to his support of expanded playoffs?
Stephen A. Smith, I am sure that in a moment when I yield the floor to you, you will laugh and belly laugh some more at my Dallas Cowboys.
No.
But I must tell you, as a lifelong Dallas Cowboy fan, this is too painful for me to even dredge up a chuckle over, because I just heard Jerry Jones say what I saw that he said last night as I read the news story. He's saying that adding a wild card team cannot come soon enough for the Dallas Cowboys. I don't know if he was trying to make a bad joke or if he was just being honest, because I'm to the point where Jerry is just being honest. He is admitting public defeat. This is the franchise once known as Super Bowl or bust. And the owner and operator of that franchise is now admitting that he has been unsuccessful for so long. He has been mired in mediocrity for so long. He has been an annual 8-8, 8-8, 8-8, that he's now saying it can't come soon enough to add that wild card, because maybe at 8-8, we might just slip into the back end of the playoffs. And at least I could say, I finally made the playoffs for the first time in God knows how many years out of how many years. I don't even want to talk about the statistics anymore, because you say them to me and beat me over the head with them day after day after day. I'm sick and tired of hearing Jerry talk like a loser. That's what he is. He's a ringmaster loser. It's all about moral victories. We got to entertain those folks out of Jerry World, but whether we win or lose, not that big a deal. 8-8, 8-8, playoffs 8-8. Add one, Jerry.
Well, it's supposed to be a debate show, and what you did was, you sort of resembled Eminem in 8 Mile, taking all my material from me, because there's nothing for me to say. I mean, 8-8, 8-8, 8-8. You've missed the playoffs the last 4 years. The last 3 years, Week 17, winning in games. You've lost, and you've lost to all 3 divisional opponents, the Giants, the Redskins, the Philadelphia Eagles, in consecutive years. You've been moribund, you've been embarrassing, you've been abysmal, you've been mired in mediocrity, you've been the epitome of disgraceful football at inopportune times. It is Jerry's world. This is what we know Jerry's world to be. And when he articulates the things that he articulated, clearly it's about looking for assistance from the league in order to make yourself relevant. The only comical part about it, Skip, is that even if Jerry Jones had already what he clearly wants, meaning the additional playoff teams, okay, the Dallas Cowboys still would not have been eligible for the postseason the last 4 years. That's right. Even if those teams, even if expansion to the postseason, was ratified and that was allowed to transpire, the Dallas Cowboys still would not have qualified. Okay, so it's 17 years. It's 1 playoff victory. It's a starting quarterback going into his 9th year with 1 playoff victory. It's a starting quarterback with 1 playoff victory, a history of losing, of folding in big moments, who you decided to give $108 million to, $55 million guaranteed, and even when he had a bad back, fresh off of back surgery. Not so bad that he can't go to the games and spectate. Not so bad that he can't be at Cameron Indoor Stadium shooting jump shots, okay? But bad enough to play to render him incapable of playing football. You still have an opportunity to draft Johnny Manziel, and you pass on that. The list just goes on and on and on. It's a litany of mediocrity at its highest level. But somehow, some way, Jerry Jones is still relevant because he is the hype machine personified. He is Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus in Big D. That's what he is. It's who he is. But it's the way it goes.
Now, allow me to flip the script to your childhood team known as the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I might point out to you that last year's Steelers at 8-8 would have made the AFC playoffs if you had added the wild card team, which is exactly why I don't want to see in the big picture an added wild card team. I love my NFL playoffs just the way they are. It's hard to make the playoffs. The Arizona Cardinals at 10-6 barely missed the playoffs, and I'm okay with that because you need to have a cutoff point that you don't allow mired in mediocrity into the playoffs. I hate it that this is coming, but I think it's coming.
But here's the question. Here's the question, Skip, in all seriousness. 32 teams in the league right now, 12 qualify for the playoffs, basically, essentially. So I guess what I'm asking you, with two more hurt, and I guess for me, I look at it from the standpoint, I don't want it because I agree with Ryan Clark. I want to see the players compensated significantly if you end up adding an additional playoff team. The NFL owners are just too damn gluttonous. It's ridiculous, okay? But because they're going to be that gluttonous, we need to make sure that the players are allowed to be just as gluttonous, and they end up profiting just as much off of playoff expansion as the owners do. That's one condition that I think we should all insist upon on behalf of the players. The other side to it is, let's be real about something here. The more football we get, the happier we're going to be. Let's not lie about that. Even though we don't necessarily want playoff expansion, is Skip Bayless going to sit there and say, well, you know what? Because I don't like this, I'm not going to watch that additional playoff game. You'll be the first one in front of your TV set, and it won't be because it's your job. It'll be because you love it. So let's be honest about that.
Nope, I won't love it. I don't want to see almost half of the NFL teams making the playoffs. I don't like it, Stephen A. And you're right, because it's our job. We have to watch to see who wins, but it's going to dilute the supreme importance of NFL playoffs. And it's going to make it harder for you to say, oh, the Cowboys didn't make the playoffs. That carries weight when you say that right now. At some point, if you keep allowing more teams in, it's not going to carry much weight anymore.
Let's leave it there.
Yeah, but what if they add the two teams and the Cowboys still miss the playoffs?
Coming this summer, the 2014 FIFA World Cup from Brazil. Every goal.
The shot, Donovan scores! The USA leads by 2!
Every save.
Here's Germany up, steal, close, in the box, the shot is stopped.
Every match. Wherever you are this summer, take the FIFA World Cup with you. It's on ESPN Radio and the ESPN Radio app.
Game 2 in the Western Conference Finals seems to favor the Spurs. Spurs had 66 points in the paint and shot 58% from the field in Game 1. Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook scored 53 points combined, but the other three starters, listen to this, only had 5 points combined. The Daily Oklahoman, take a look at the paper. Paint job. Apropos. Stephen A. Smith, what should OKC do in Game 2 to even the series?
Clearly, the big boys are not going to be able to do much for you offensively. They need to go small and just unleash an offensive assault, unlike the San Antonio Spurs have seen in quite some time. They got to put in Reggie Jackson on the floor with a Kevin Durant, with a Russell Westbrook. You've got to use a guy like Steven Adams to try and bang for you down there. But outside of that, try to force the San Antonio Spurs to acquiesce to what you're throwing at them. It's going to have to be a shootout. No matter how potent their defense could be, no matter how they clamp down in the third quarter, the reality is very, very simple. The San Antonio Spurs still walked away scoring over 120 points in Game 1 of this series. They're going to put up points. OKC needs to put up more. So what you have to do is put your best offense on the floor and then roll the dice that way. Whether it's attacking the basket or shooting perimeter shots, somehow, some way, you're going to have to force the San Antonio Spurs to play your brand of basketball in order to have a chance. Because if they're allowed to stick with their schemes and their personnel the way that they do, and you are forced to adjust, you have no chance of winning this series.
So you're basically saying they should play that sort of three-guard offense with Reggie Jackson along with Westbrook and Durant? Wow.
Yes, I do.
Well, I hope they do exactly what you think, because I like my chances against that. I got to tell you. I have a random question before I give you my answer. Stephen Naismith, who knows all and sees all about pro basketball, answer me this. How is it that LeBron James and Dwayne Wade have won the last 2 championships, including beating my Spurs in last year's finals, as you well know, without a true center and without a shot blocker? But now that Oklahoma City has lost Ibaka, we're saying, or I'm not, but others are all saying, man, Westbrook and Durant, there's no way they can get it done against the Spurs without their true center and shot blocker. How is that?
To answer the question directly, number one, most teams in the league aren't as potent on the fast break as Miami is. And number two, both Dwayne Wade and LeBron James create their own matchup problems in terms of their size. Dwayne Wade is bigger than a lot of guards who go up and defend him. He's able to actually play with his back to the basket. LeBron James is a locomotive coming at you, plus he attacks the basket with vigor a lot of times, so he's able to get guys in foul trouble. Westbrook, even though he attacks the basket with vigor and he's lethal, he's usually just blowing by people and laying it in. Kevin Durant is usually shooting jump shots. Even though they get to the free throw line more than anybody, it's usually because they whether it's on a fast break or what have you, or getting it down low. The bottom line is that they're primarily a perimeter shooting team, so they don't create the kind of problems that LeBron and D. Wade create. They're very potent, just as if not more potent in terms of their marksmanship, but how they scored the ball is not as problematic for other teams as it is when Miami's scoring the ball, because they're usually putting a body on you and creating contact to do it.
Here's my answer to my question. I think LeBron and Dwayne Wade, when they decide to be, are far better defenders than Westbrook and Durant are. So they can create and disrupt. They can create offense with their defense in ways these two guys can't. And I remind you, Russell Westbrook's the best offensive rebounding guard in the league. So he can do some things in the paint on offense and should be able to do it as well on defense as a rebounder. But he and Durant both play mostly on the perimeter. So they're mostly long-distance shooters, although Russell attacks the basket. But they just play a very different brand of basketball than LeBron and D. Wade do, who can both attack the basket and kill you in the paint in ways that Kevin does not kill you in the paint. So back to the problem here. Remember, the Thunder weren't playing very good defense against the Clippers with Ibaka. They were allowing 106 points a game to the L.A. Clippers. And I don't think the Clippers are any juggernaut of an offensive explosion. So, again, they were already having defensive deficiencies coming in, and yet I told you last night, and again, I hate to, I'm not divulging state secrets here, but if I were Scott Brooks, I would stick with the lineup that made for a 17-5 run right out of the halftime. And what was it? He had Collison, who causes the Spurs a lot of trouble with his savvy and his grit and his toughness, his muscle. They had Collison and Perkins playing on the interior, and all of a sudden the Spurs couldn't get to the basket anymore. Tony Parker dribbled the air out of the basketball trying to get to the basket. I'll try again. I'll try again. I'll try again. Pick and roll again. Let's pick and roll again, Tim. How about again? Oh, the shot clock ran out. Well, what do you know? I can't stand to watch it, but it was shut down defense, and it was the only time in the game that the Spurs couldn't get to the basket. I know Collison can't score. I don't care. I know Perkins can barely score. I don't care. That's their only hope to me, is keep some muscle on the floor to fight with Tiago Splitter and Tim Duncan inside, and then just hope that Durant and Westbrook can make enough shots, which they're fully capable of making, to keep you in the game. That's how I play it. That's just me.
I got you. I got you. I can't knock you for that, but I just don't think you're going to stop San Antonio, and somehow, some way, you've got to put yourself in the best position to outscore them.
Take a look, folks. The Las Vegas Hilton released their preseason win totals for every team in the NFL. Let's take a look at the NFC East. The Eagles are predicted to have the most wins in the NFC East with 9, followed by the Cowboys at 8, and the Redskins and Giants winning 7.5 games. All right, so we asked this question. What does this say about the NFC East? Skip Bayless, this for you.
Stephen A. Smith, before I answer this question, just a quick aside, because I want to get this in the show.
Oh.
Did you hear Tiger Woods during his press conference yesterday suddenly just blurt out, "My friend Romo"? My friend Romo? Where did that come from?
Jinx!
That's what's wrong with Tiger Woods.
Jinx!
Now we know why Tiger has struggled so mightily. He is somehow bonded with Tony Romo.
Oh, no,
I don't. Okay. Now, back to the question at hand.
What does it say?
It says that the odds makers have little to no respect for next year's NFC East, because the odds makers are saying that only one team in the East is even going to be slightly above 500 when all is said and done. That would be the Eagles at around 9-7. And yet, I think the odds makers at this moment, given my Romo reference and my lack of faith in my Dallas Cowboys at this moment in time, I think they are overestimating Dallas to win 8 games and go 8-8 again. I think that's high. And I think the Redskins at about 7.5 wins projected, I think that's low. Right now, if you back me into a corner, I'm picking the Redskins to win the NFC East. I am obviously banking heavily on my guy, Robert Griffin III, to bounce all the way back to being RG3 that we knew 2 years ago before the dreaded knee injury and the dreaded last year that he had. I think with Deshaun Jackson wreaking revenge on Philly twice within the NFC East battles, I love that addition. I love what it'll do for the team. I love it that the Redskins went out and signed our guy, Ryan Clark, just for his savvy, his leadership, and his toughness. I think that will really help mold that defensive secondary. And I like where they're headed if RG3 is RG3, and I believe with all my heart he will bounce completely back. So I have the Redskins winning 10 games next year.
Skip Bayless, so do I. I believe the acquisition of Deshaun Jackson to pair with the Pierre Garçon, with Alfred Morris coming out of the backfield, with RG3 on a mission to resurrect his reputation, his name, etc. I think all of those things bode well for the Washington Redskins. And I think that the way the Eagles organization, tacitly or otherwise, handled the Deshaun Jackson situation will come back to haunt them. Plus, I'm not sold on Nick Foles. I know LaShawn McCoy was in here yesterday. I know how he feels about Nick Foles. He clearly can play. He's no scrub. But now that you're the guy and teams are able to walk into the season preparing for you, knowing they'll have to, I think it's going to be a little bit different for Nick Foles this year than it was last year. And as a result, I don't think that the Eagles are going to win the division. I'm thinking that the Redskins will probably do it. I'm not going to rule out my Giants because Eli Manning is not going to have 2 awful seasons in a row. But I've got a lot of questions about them at running back, definitely their wide receiver situation or whatever. And the Cowboys are the Cowboys. They'll make it interesting to some degree. But I'm predicting this year they'll probably come in last place.
You know, Carrie Champion just made an interesting side comment to me. She said quietly, "You forgot about the Giants." I did, and that is significant.
You did.
Because They're forgettable.
Oh, gosh.
Eli just led the NFL in interceptions for the third time in his career. He often follows that with a bounce-back year, but now it's complicated by his, what was it, ankle surgery or foot surgery. I don't know, Stephen A. He might slowly be fading into the downside of his career. I don't know that you can count on him bouncing quite back the way he used to.
We'll see. I just don't know if the Giants have all the personnel, even though Jerry Reese has done a good job adding a couple of pieces and keeping Beeson and those boys. The reality is very, very simple. I've got some questions about them at one of the wide receiver spots, definitely at the tight end spot, and obviously at the running back spot, and that's enough for me to sit there and look at them in third place. I still think they're better than the Cowboys. I just don't think that they are better than the Redskins or the Eagles right now.
I will give you that they're better than Dallas right now. As it stands, I can't see my Cowboys winning more than 6 games. I know they are quietly, through the draft, the first round of the draft, building one of the better offensive lines in pro football. Slowly but surely, piece after piece, because they've drafted, as you know, 3 offensive linemen in the first rounds over the last 4 years. I like that. They've just lost so much on defense that it's hard for me to believe that the worst defense in the NFL will be significantly better. I cannot see it next year.
Dolphin safety Don Jones is back with the team after completing team-mandated sensitivity training for tweeting, quote, "Oh my God, horrible," in response to Michael Sam kissing his boyfriend after becoming the first openly gay player drafted by an NFL team. Let's consider that and ask this question. Did the Dolphins make the right decision by reinstating him? Stephen A., I'll give it to you.
Yes, they did. I was on the record when, they essentially suspended him from team activity and, wanted him to go to all that sensitivity training and stuff, that I thought it was wrong for them to punish him in the manner that he did, and I stand by that. Certainly that we live in a society where we have to be far more sensitive and tolerant about a lot of different things, and we understand that, but I think that works both ways. You're watching the NFL draft. A lot of people didn't expect to see that. And, for me personally, again, I'm going to reiterate the same position that I took that day. Michael Sam didn't do anything wrong. He announced in February that he indeed is gay, just like you would see a heterosexual couple kiss one another. You saw him kiss his boyfriend. I saw no problem with that whatsoever. I don't have any problem with that to this day. I did not see the part like I articulated last week, Skip, when everybody was talking about how there was cake in the face and it was a bit excessive or whatever. Had I seen something like that, I would have said the same thing that I would say to a heterosexual couple. Go get a room. Nobody's looking for that. Nobody's anticipating all of that. But in the end, what it comes down to is that, again, as a society, there's an adjustment that's taking place here. And when that adjustment is taking place, or that transition rather is taking place in terms of elevating our level of tolerance, it works both ways, because an individual that didn't expect to see that just responded, "Oh my God," and then when somebody asked him something, he said horrible or whatever, you call him into the office, you make sure Don Jones knows that's not something that you do, here is why, and if you want to require him to go to sensitivity training, so be it. But to have him suspended from team activities because of that, he didn't go on a tirade or a rant going off about homosexuality and going off against the gay community or things of that nature. He was sitting at home minding his business, watching the NFL draft, and did not expect to see that. And it was an instantaneous reaction, and I think that there's a level of understanding that the Miami Dolphins needed to employ and exercise. And I'm glad they saw the error of their ways, because I stand behind what I said. That man never deserved to be suspended from team activities. He just didn't.
You did say that, and I think you're very eloquent in backing it up, as you just did. And I appreciate everything you just said. I heard last week from a player rep of an NFL team who told me that several in his constituency, on his team, several of his players were upset at what they thought was extreme, severe punishment of Don Jones, that they were moving to ask their player rep to, in effect, file a grievance. It's actually just that he was going to call the NFLPA, which he had already done, and that the NFLPA told him they had heard from several player reps who were concerned that everyone on this issue should be able to express themselves in a fair-minded way. They should be able to express their personal beliefs if it comes to that. And Stephen A., as we've talked many times, this is a very complex, complicated, tricky issue. But remember, in the Dolphins' case, they've just been through so many scandals of their own. Maybe in a way they overreacted to this because of what they just went through last season, and I can certainly appreciate that. But I also appreciate the fact, and you were the first to jump out and say time out here, that they did send him to sensitivity training for what? It seemed like it was 10 days or so, maybe a couple of weeks, and then he was back. Yeah. And that seems fair to me because, again, Don Jones, and I don't know him, don't know much about him, but whatever his personal beliefs are, albeit religious or moral beliefs or however he feels, he should be able to feel that without feeling uncomfortable with having to keep all of his thoughts to himself. But here's the fine line. As I've said many times on this show, you cannot condemn publicly. If you choose not to condone, that's your right. So how close did he come to condemning with, oh my God, horrible? I don't know. It's close. It's a real close call. The oh my gods may be inbounds. The horrible maybe crossed the line. It did cross the line, right, obviously. And then the Dolphins really overreacted to me and said, man, you are gone until training camp. Well, that's too much. And you said it just right. Call him in, talk to him. If he needs to go for a couple of weeks to some sort of training, that's fine. And I'm sure Don Jones will be much slower to hit send next time. He'll think about it. But the player rep was telling me, gee, if we all have our personal beliefs, we should be able to stand by what we believe, just as Michael Sam and others should be able to stand by publicly what they believe. You just can't express your belief as a form of hate or condemnation. You just can't. And that's what the NFL is going to have to try to regulate and teach. And I think this was a real teaching moment for the NFL, what Don Jones just went through.
Well, I want to applaud you, Skip, for making that clarification, because again, you don't have to condone, but you cannot condemn. I think that's simple enough to understand. But the reason why I keep preaching about the importance of tolerance is because the gay community needs to make sure that it exercises its level of tolerance as well. And I made news, and you saw all the Google alerts last week, and I was all over the place because some people took issue with my position or whatever. Let me be the first to say I don't give a damn. I stand by what I say, and I mean what I say, particularly when it comes to an issue like this, because I have been somebody who's been incredibly supportive of the gay community in terms of making sure that their civil rights are something that to recognize that they are entitled to it, that the fight that they have been fighting for many, many years is definitely legitimate and substantial, that they have every right to have their civil rights, they have every right not to be ostracized or prejudiced against and all of that other stuff. Now, having said all of that, they have to understand that even though while somebody is in support of your civil rights and somebody is in support of your civil liberties and all the things that come with it, doesn't necessarily mean that people have to like you or what your orientation entails. And as a result of that, it's going to take an adjustment because, again, this is very, very important, y'all. We are on the air. We're having meetings. We've talked about this. Well, you know what? You can't say homosexual. You should say gay. You can't say a lifestyle. It's sexual orientation. You know, these are things that you're learning as you go along because you're finding out in the days and the weeks and the months that go by what's offensive, what's inappropriate, what's not. And no one knew. I didn't know until it was told to me by my employer. And so as a result of that, again, when you want to put somebody into training or expose them to what's appropriate and what is not, then that's fine. But when people are being punished in the process of learning as we go along, whether it be through osmosis or through actual mistakes, I mean, what are you supposed to do? I mean, you know, and that's the whole point here. You're watching an NFL draft. You don't expect to see something like that. It threw you aback. Okay? Who's to say that he wasn't talking about ESPN because we were airing the draft and that's what we showed? Or the NFL Network, for crying out loud. We don't know that. We assumed, but we don't know. And so we just need to be careful in understanding that tolerance goes both ways. We need to be incredibly more tolerant and understanding of the gay community. And the gay community needs to be incredibly tolerant and understanding of the ignorance emanating from a community that is not their own, because some folks don't quite understand it, particularly in a Christian society that preaches the antithesis of some of the things they do because they say that's who they are. That is a reality that they have to accept. And if you want tolerance, you got to give it too. Period.
Is it fair to say, from your vantage point, that both sides of this issue have made some progress toward enlightenment and some tolerance of the other side?
Absolutely.
I agree with you.
Absolutely.
I think we're making a little progress. At least I feel that's my 2 cents on this issue. That both
We're
sides
doing it
are
right now,
beginning to
but
at least
understand one another.
Understand it.
Yeah, that makes sense. According to the Oregonian, Mark Cuban consulted with a retired FBI agent and considered a lawsuit after some controversial calls in the 2006 NBA Finals where his Mavericks lost to the Heat in 6 games. The agent told him that he could sue because he would win his case. When asked about the story, Mark Cuban said he doesn't remember. Very Oliver North of him. Hey, so Stephen A. Smith, what do you make of this case?
Well, listen, I mean, anytime Mark Cuban brings attention to something, it's going to resonate. I was at that 2006 NBA Finals. I've never seen him this furious. He turned around, he looked at the commissioner who was in the crowd, Commissioner David Stern at the time, and others, and was screaming something in their direction because he was so furious at the officiating. And obviously it's something that he's brought attention to. It's been a crusade of his. He's been on our show live from South Beach talking about some of the things that, we haven't seen and the kind of things we all in the media need to look into. So whatever his position is, it has been consistent. He has been a crusader on a mission as it pertains to improving the level of officiating that exists within our league. I think with the whole Tim Donaghy scandal, that's derailed a lot of that momentum to some degree because you have to take the best interest of the league into consideration. And it's one thing when people are incompetent or inept in any way. It's another thing when the Tim Donaghys of the world apparently did it purposely. You certainly don't want to imply in any way that anybody else in the league would even think of doing such a thing without some substantial evidence to support such an accusation. And Mark Cuban, thank goodness, never elected to do so because he knows better, just like me or anybody else would know better. But his thing about officiating is consistent. His positions have been consistent. And to be quite honest with you, they've been legitimate in every way because especially as we've watched the games take place in recent memory over the last couple of years or so. I'm certainly not accusing anybody of doing anything purposely, but the games are called entirely too tight, and the game is so soft these days, it's incredibly alarming, to be quite honest with you.
So, Stephen A., you were there in 2006. When I read the allegations, and by the way, I want to compliment a former teammate of mine, John Canzano of the Oregonian, for doing a sensational investigative job on this series. When you read the allegations of the former FBI guy who did the investigation after 06 finals for Mark Cuban, and he concluded, sue because you will win, are you buying this? Because remember Game 5? Dwayne Wade took 25 free throws in Game 5 and made the 2 at the end of overtime that won the game by 1 point. That was the night Mark Cuban went crazy after the game. So are we to read into this that somehow the NBA did not want Mark Cuban to win?
Well, first of all, I think it's obvious the NBA would not have wanted Mark Cuban to win, but I also think it's important to point out that Mark Cuban would not have won. What would he have accomplished? You can't go back on the court and play the game's over. What's done is done. And anything else that comes along from an informational perspective that impugns the integrity of the league in any way also compromises Mark Cuban, who's a member of the Board of Governors, is one of the league owners. And so to me, it was just, I don't want to say crying over spilled milk or sour grapes or anything like that, because I don't want to dismiss his concerns in terms of the ineptitude of the officiating at that particular moment in time. But you know what? The Sacramento Kings could have whined and cried about it back in 2001 when they went up against the Los Angeles Lakers in the Western Conference Finals, particularly in that Game 6 at the Staples Center. To this day, we were all there, myself, Wilbon, J.A. Adonde, and others. Just ask them. We all sat back and were happy there was going to be a Game 7 back in Sacramento, and that the Sacramento Kings would likely lose in the Western Conference Finals so the Lakers could be in the finals. But at the same time, don't get it twisted. All of us recognize that the Sacramento Kings basically got robbed that game. Bad officiating usually comes with the territory. We understand that, and that's what Mark Cuban was complaining about. But him taking it to that next level wasn't going to help anybody associated with the league. I can tell you that.
Okay, just to remind our viewers, Dallas won the first 2 games in Dallas in 06 in the finals, and then lost 4 in a row as Dwayne Wade averaged 18.3 free throws per game in those last 4 losses for the Dallas Mavericks owned by Mark Cuban. So, yes. Big picture now, I'm an NBA nut, you are, I live and die with these games. When I read these things, I lose a little faith. Not that I haven't lost some in the past, but I lose a little faith post-Donaghy scandal. You remember in, 2007? And even now, I wonder, I read into, this game is so difficult to officiate. There were some block charge calls last night, as you well know, on Durant, on Westbrook, on Reggie Jackson, and they're just so close to call, and yet that 3-man officiating crew, as Jeff Van Gundy always says, there are 3 teams on the court.
You're right.
Home, visitors, referees, and they can have enormous impact on the game. Have you, Stephen A. Smith, lost some faith in the officiating?
No, I have not. I've lost faith. I don't want to say I've lost faith at all, because I haven't. I love this league. I love this game. I'm a supporter of the game. I think the blessings that I've received in my life and my career is in large part due to my connection with the NBA. I love the game of basketball. I just can't get enough of it. But I will tell you this. I do believe that the game is called entirely too tightly. I think the league has overreacted. I'm watching guys getting technicals for looking at officials wrong. Yeah. It has gotten beyond ridiculous, and they really, really need to scale it back and stop being so tight with this stuff. It's a bit ridiculous, to say the least. I don't think officials should have that kind of power.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. You can catch First Take Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific on ESPN2.
The next big thing, the next new kid, the next overnight sensation, the next rookie, one to watch, the next Hall of Famer, the next intimidator, the next 6-time, the next king. Next. Who's next? Let's find out. Names are made here. The History 300 at Charlotte, Saturday at 2:30 Eastern on ABC.